Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty, streaming online at foxnews.com. I'm your host, Judge Andrew Napolitano, here defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. The Scott Brown victory in Massachusetts is a complete repudiation of the government's present excess. The voters of Massachusetts are just the latest to say enough is enough. First it was Virginia and then New Jersey, and now, shockingly, the seat that once belonged to Teddy Kennedy. President Obama and his fellow Democrats in the Senate and in the House have been blindsided. The same people, the independents, who voted them in are now voting them out, one after another. Americans are realizing that the Obama Democrat agenda to spend, spend, and spend is not working, and health care is representative of the broader problem that they have. The Massachusetts Secretary of State, however, has indicated that he will wait for the Massachusetts statutory period, the law says 10 days, before certifying Senator Brown's victory. In order for the Senate to seat Brown without the written certification from the Secretary of State, as it did for Ted Kennedy in 1962, it will need to waive its own rules which require the written certification. And such a waiver would mean 60 votes. So therefore, at least 20 Senate Democrats would join presumably all 40 sitting Senate Republicans to do this. The bottom line, the Senate can take its time in seating Senator Brown, and no court will intercede. As for the political fallout of any foot-dragging like this, it would be tsunami-like. Joining me now is Jacob Hornberger, the president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Jake, always a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Hey, it's nice to be back with you, Judge.
Do you think that big government was ready for the wake-up call that they got from Massachusetts, of all places, yesterday?
I don't think there's any question that they were not ready for it. This is an absolute shocking political event. I mean, this is Taxachusetts. This is liberal bastion USA. And here all of a sudden the voters say, we're going to reject your liberal big government socialist candidate.
The debate in Massachusetts essentially, in my view, was over health care, because Senator Brown said he will vote against it. He will vote to filibuster it. He will do all in his power to stop the march of centralized planning that the Obama administration has commenced. Wouldn't you think they would learn their lesson? Almost the same thing happened to them in New Jersey, my home state, equally as liberal a state just 2 months ago. Yet in both places, they sent the president in the last minute. He held these huge rallies on a Sunday afternoon, and still the independent voters in droves rejected his message.
Yeah, and what was really amusing was that Obama went up there and campaigned at the last minute and barely even made any mention of the health care bill, although it was obvious that that was the central issue in his campaign because the Republican had made it that way. And I think you made a very important point at the beginning. The voters, the American people generally, are very concerned. They know this government is spending money like there was no tomorrow. They're on this credit card with no limit. They're piling debt upon debt. But I think the thing that we've got to watch out for is that we've got to keep in mind that, remember that before Obama, the Republicans were spending money like it was going out of style. And so it remains to be seen whether this guy is just another big government Republican or whether he's like Ron Paul that truly believes in limited government and reining in this out-of-control spending.
Well, let me be the skunk at the garden party, Jake. He's also in favor of torture. He's in favor of military tribunals for people that have been accused of ordinary crimes that the Constitution requires be tried before juries. He's in favor of fighting undeclared wars. And he probably would have voted with TARP and stimulus if he had been in the Senate and it had been proposed by a Republican president. So should we, who believe in the primacy of the individual and limited government and the government occupying only the space provided by the Constitution, be rejoicing over this or lamenting over it?
Well, that's the problem. It's no victory for liberty. The good news is that maybe the socialist health care plan will go down in defeat. The bad news is for advocates of liberty is it's just one statist defeating another statist. This is the problem with conservatives, as you know, Judge. I mean, the Washington Times, for example, just had a really nice editorial on the need to constrain government spending. But they don't mention a word about foreign policy, of Madison's great quote where he said, of all the enemies to liberty, war is the biggest because it contains the seeds of all the rest, the big spending, the bureaucracies, the whole thing that comes with violations of liberty, the torture, the military tribunals. I can't say that this is a big victory for liberty. It's just out of the frying pan, into the fire, back and forth we go with these Democrats and Republicans.
I agree with everything you've said. I woke up happy this morning. I should say I went to bed happy last night because this 41st vote may stop the awful 2,000-page bill that Harry Reid cobbled together with absurd, arguably even unlawful concessions to certain members of Congress. And it may send the Democrats back to the drawing board. But wearing your political hat for a minute, what do you think will happen if the Senate refuses to seat Senator Brown until after the present Senate, which includes Senator Paul Kirk, the appointed surrogate of the Democrat machine, and votes on the health care bill before Scott Brown is seated?
I think they have to know that if they try to pull that one, there will be a political backlash against them in the next congressional elections, the likes of which is impossible to imagine. And I just cannot imagine that they're going to try to pull a short-term gain on an issue which most Americans are ambivalent about or opposed to, and pay that type of permanent long-term price.
I think they will pay a difficult price. What's your view of the president on this, Jake? Do you think that he has, say, the flexibility of a Bill Clinton who, after he lost, the Democrats lost control of Congress in '94, did move, ever so slowly, but he did move toward the center? Or do you think that President Obama and the folks around him are left-wing ideologues who will try and squeeze out whatever they can between now and November, no matter what the voters have said in the only 3 statewide elections that have occurred since his election a year ago?
Well, I think he's going to be torn in both directions, but I got a feeling he's going to play the smart political game and let this issue die. I cannot believe that he's going to try to cram this thing down the throats of the American people and think that there's not going to be a reaction against him 2 years and possibly 3 years from now when he's running for re-election.
One last question before I let you go. Another surprise this morning as I'm reading the papers at the crack of dawn. Ben Bernanke gave a speech yesterday in which he's in favor of an audit of the AIG bailout by the New York Fed. Isn't this ridiculous? He has the power to order released all of those documents that he now says he wants an audit to try and uncover. Is he afraid that maybe a real audit might be coming, Jake?
I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, we know that there were some shenanigans going on with this AIG deal, and it's also hypocritical because notice that he won't allow the Fed to be audited, and that's what Ron Paul's in the Fed or audit the Fed bill is all about. So he wants to perform his own audit of AIG, but doesn't want an official audit of the Fed. A little bit hypocritical.
Jake Hornberger, thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
It's always a pleasure, Judge. Thank you for having me.